just peace immediately for martyred Ukraine. This is a very important distinction. We did not see this from the Vatican before.
Before we continue, we invite you to follow our channel, the only American show reporting live from Ukraine every day.
Hi, this is Joe Lindsley in LVIV. Please like, subscribe, and share these reports. And in the comments and also on X at JP Lindsley, I will be sharing every day my archival Ukraine reports from the past 3 years on this day. It's a good way to travel through the ups and downs of Ukraine's full-scale resistance. Now, there's a lot to cover today. Let's start with the news we have just now of this 2-hour phone call between Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin. Trump seems pretty optimistic about this call, but as anyone who's been through, here in Ukraine knows, Russian promises are one thing and Russian reality is something else. Trump believes his call went very well, he says. He says Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. The conditions for that, he said, will be negotiated between the two parties, so no details whatsoever, and we know that Russia has pretty heavy conditions on Ukraine. But Trump seems happy with the spirit and tone of this conversation, and he speaks of Russia wanting to do large-scale trade with the U.S. So he seems very hopeful for that. And, I think for Ukrainians hearing this, it's painful, to see a nation that has done so much to destroy the enterprise of this country, to destroy entire cities, is being treated as a reasonable entity. We do see the strategy of Trump, though. He thinks, it seems, that through trade, all problems can be healed. What Russia has to offer is a different story. I think we can just say that Trump certainly seems optimistic about this. We wait and see. I think throughout Ukraine, you wait and see what kind of attacks will follow this call today. There's not much more we can say about it, although I should note that Trump, at the end of his statement, which he posted on social media, says the Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. That might be something a little bit hopeful, to know that these negotiations would be in such a place as the Vatican. Now, indeed, the Vatican has emerged as a nexus of geostrategic negotiations these past weeks because of the affairs of history. While Pope Leo was receiving yesterday a line of kings, queens, princesses, presidents, vice presidents, prime ministers, President Zelensky and his wife were patiently waiting somewhere else in the Vatican to have the first private meeting with Pope Leo after his inaugural Mass. President Zelensky gave Pope Leo an icon of the Virgin Mary made from a munitions crate from that small frontline city of Izum. A day later, today, Pope Leo met with J.D. Vance, and the American Pope gave the American Vice President a flower sculpture symbolizing how fragile peace is. The rare events of a papal death, funeral, and inauguration have served as a healing stage for the world, repairing perhaps personal relationships, but not just any personal relationships, among the most powerful people in the world, and underscoring just how important these relationships are for peace and war. Notably, Leo has been repeating a new Vatican refrain about Ukraine. He's not calling for both sides to stop or to stop the killing, as Trump and his team are saying. Instead, Pope Leo is calling for a just peace immediately for a martyred Ukraine. These are very precise terms that he uses over and over. He says just peace, not just peace, but a just peace immediately. And 3, and this is something that many American networks missed in the coverage from yesterday, and they missed in the translation, Leo is not equivocating between Ukraine and Russia. He specifically calls Ukraine martyred Ukraine. Martyred, like Christ, like the heroes of the Catholic Church. Ukraine has been martyred for some noble truth. So, Pope Leo is calling for a just peace immediately for martyred Ukraine.
La martoriata Ucraina attende finalmente negoziati per una pace giusta e duratura.
This is a very important distinction. We did not see this from the Vatican before. Maybe he thought of this on his own, but perhaps he's also been listening, unlike before, to the Ukrainian Greek Catholic leadership. For example, the Ukrainian Catholic Archbishop of Philadelphia, Boris Gudziak, has used this term, martyred Ukraine. And maybe now the Vatican is actually listening to the Ukrainian Catholics. 10 days ago was May 9th, Russia's biggest holiday, more important for Russia than Christmas, which they really haven't celebrated since 1917, since the Bolshevik Revolution. May 9th is the anniversary of the defeat of the Nazis in World War II. And the Russians, by focusing on that, or always ignore the subsequent years of hell unleashed by Stalin and now by Putin. I have now been in wartime Ukraine for 4 of these May 9ths. And always in the lead up to each one, we are warned by the security experts and the think tank people to be very afraid. Russia is going to do something horrible. This year, to prevent its parade from being attacked, the Kremlin called unilaterally for a 3-day truce to enjoy its holiday. But there are many rumors among these experts that afterward, in the hours after the truce, it was going to be very bad. And it's important to note, these Russian truces, they always end at midnight. And no one thinks about that, but really consider what that means. You can have a relaxing day if you're in Ukraine with your family on a Sunday afternoon, but come midnight, you can expect Russian attacks, which means it's not really a truce. It means you're not going to be able to sleep at all. I mean, if there was any good faith, they would at least put the truce until 9 o'clock in the morning, but they never do that. And detail like that should show Trump and others that Russians are not serious about peace. And look, we look at what happened on May 9th. Russia has, after the unilateral truce ended, Russia continued its daily and nightly attacks upon Ukraine. But once again, nothing especially decisive. And we've been warned, for 3.5 years now. Every holiday that approaches, we're told Russia's going to do something big, and they never do. And my question is, at what point are we going to say that they're not capable of doing this? The Ukrainians have weakened them considerably, and that we don't have to be afraid of Russia. In fact, just on yesterday, Sunday night, we had a warning that to be prepared, that Russia was going to launch one of its mid-range intercontinental ballistic missiles. And all these people, people like to show off their expertise and or their so-called expertise, or their years of experience in the military, and so they spread the word. Pro-Ukraine people spreading the word, saying, "Be cautious, be afraid." And I've seen so much of this, and I think that this is what Russia wants: is the world to be perpetually afraid. But we see that Russia is not able to make a decisive blow. They've tried that when they tried to take Kyiv in 2022, and they've been unable to do it. And I think the White House does miss this. And that's why they're not really aware of just how strong Ukraine is. And still, the Russian roulette of drone assaults on civilians continues, especially in places like Kherson. I just met yesterday with 2 people who were freshly returned from that city, and it's hell there. I mean, they call it a human safari, the way the Russians attack, and they seek out these civilians. And then over the weekend, on the night of May 17th to 18th, Russia carried out its largest single drone attack upon Ukraine. This drone activity has been increasing steadily, and I think we can expect that we're going to keep saying this has been the largest attack because the Russians they're increasing their drone capabilities. In the Black Sea in the past days, Ukrainian sea drones have destroyed a Russian surface radar station on an offshore gas platform, and the Ukrainians with their drones are continuing to do amazing things against this mighty behemoth. And I want to close here with the words of Said Ismogilov. He's the Supreme Mufti of Ukraine, and he's chosen to serve in the Ukrainian military. And here's his recent dispatch from the front lines. He describes the Russian invaders as a swarm of locusts. Their purpose is to push forward, he says, no matter what, seizing new territories. Every day in Volchansk, they advance in small groups of 3 to 5, climbing over the corpses of those who, hours earlier, were storming the same position. No sense, no reason, no success. Just piling bodies against us. The Supreme Mufti continues, my philosophical and theological training pushes my mind to make sense of why this conditional Homo erectus, or upright man, because I cannot organically call them Homo sapiens, people thinking beings, because I see no rationality in their actions. So he describes the Russians as Homo erectus climbing over the corpses of their own swarm to certain death amid ruins resembling a Martian landscape. And for what? What's the motivation? What do they hope to gain? When I speak to Russian prisoners of war, the Supreme Mufti says, they all said they wanted money from Putin's regime in order to improve their financial situation. Not one of them mentioned ideological motives, belief in higher values, or a lofty goal. Just loans, debts, mortgages, poverty, the need to raise kids. You came to kill our children in order to raise yours? Silence. Eyes down. But that's the reality. They'd calmly kill us and our children, take our homes, sleep in our beds, even wear our clothes. They don't see it as repulsive or wrong. Their authorities gave them permission, and so it's okay. Without hesitation, they'd wear your dress and eat from your plate, because their czar and church blessed it. They come to take and devour our resources to populate our land with themselves. While the swarm's leaders try to explain why they attack and kill us, for example to Trump, that's my aside, the lower ranks just want to enrich themselves by murdering and looting. Those are the words of the Supreme Mufti of Ukraine, who is in Ukrainian military, on his perspective of what he witnesses and seeing the Russians invade. And it reminds me of the Ukrainian word for crime versus the Russian word for crime. In Ukrainian, the word for crime comes from the word for evil, evil doing, zlochnist. I hope I pronounced it correctly there, which means that which is evil. And the Russian word for crime is something like, it's a pristoplenia, which means stepping over a line. And going back to the days of the czars and the days of the Bolsheviks, and now of Putin, for the Russian, the religion and the state and ethics are all tied together. So you can do what the Kremlin permits. The Kremlin is your moral guide, and that's the only thing that matters, is that you don't step over the lines created by the Kremlin. And for the Ukrainians, what is good and evil is written in our hearts. This has been Joe Lindsley reporting from Ukraine. I've been here every moment to this full-scale invasion. Maybe later this week I'll update you on why I've disappeared from YouTube for a few weeks. But I'm going to, as I mentioned, going to start posting the archives of my daily report. So today you can see the reports from Chicago's WGN Radio with Bob Surratt from May 19th, 2024, May 19th, 2023, and May 19th, 2022. And we'll have more analysis tomorrow on the Trump-Putin phone call. With that, thank you. This is Joe Lindsley reporting from Lviv.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Ебать.